You're listening to Spiritual Matters with Energy.
Now, there are a few stories of self-healing that have become as well known as that of Brandon Bays, and she's with us now on Spiritual Matters. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
We're delighted to have you. Now, you had a very serious health issue present itself to you, which led you into a process of self-healing that's now known as the journey. Can you take us through the story from the time you discovered something wasn't right?
Right. Well, it all goes back to, I was turning 39 years old, and, I thought I had everything right, was doing everything right in my life. I was a vegetarian, I was working out every day, meditating every day, doing all the things that were meant to do. I felt fulfilled in my business, I had a beautiful home life with children and with my husband, and so you could say I had my ducks in a row. And the last thing I ever expected to have happen was to end up having my tummy start growing, and I just didn't want to believe it was actually happening to me. And I know many listeners who are listening already know the story that I ended up going to a medical doctor, and I was diagnosed to have a tumor that was the size of a basketball, and it really did send me reeling. And so the journey was actually born from my own experience of healing from that tumor, and it's now work that I'm using, and people, hundreds of thousands of people around the world are using to participate in their own healing journeys, to get access to the cell memories and to clear whatever emotional blocks and physical issues they might have so they can undergo their own healing. So it was quite a remarkable journey. I don't know how much in detail you're wanting me to go, but I
think we'd like a bit more detail than that, Brandon.
Yeah, well, it was actually totally unexpected. Came out of the blue, out of nowhere, and my tummy started to grow. And I was sitting for meditation one day. And for those of listeners that meditate, there can come a point in meditation where your mind kind of drifts into the background. And I was resting in this place of stillness, and out of nowhere came a gut instinct that I might be seriously ill and I need to get real and get myself to an orthodox medical doctor. And I came out of that meditation, and I was just overwhelmed with waves of shame. This feeling, here I am, I'm in the alternative field. I've been certified in so many different aspects of the alternative field in complementary medicine. And not only that, I was, traveling on the road teaching tens of thousands of people how to create vibrant health with a living health program with Tony Robbins. And so the last thing I expected to have happen was for this to happen. And so I had all this shame come flooding, and I also had a terrible feeling of so much pride as well, that I had too much pride to call up my best friend and say, hey, can you give me a recommendation to go to the kind of doctor you're going to? And instead, I did the chicken's way out. I went to the local Barnes & Noble bookshop, and I picked up a book written by a surgeon that said no more hysterectomies. And I thought, okay, well, at least this is a medical doctor who doesn't, as the first option, take out your organs. And so I called the number at the back of the book, and the nurse told me it would take about 6 to 8 months for me to even get an appointment with her. And I didn't know at that time, my tummy was just a little bit puffy, but the tumor became quite aggressive. And it went from being just a little difficult to zip up my trousers to I looked about 5 months pregnant, and nearly 6 months pregnant, even though I knew I wasn't. And when I got to the doctor, she did all the kinds of exams that I'm sure that nobody wants to hear about on air, very graphic ones. But at the end of that, she just turned to me and she said, you are medically diagnosed with a mass that is the size of a basketball. And, Energy, you might think just because I was in the healing field and had all my training in that area, that I would have taken that news with some sort of, calmness. But that's not what the experience was. I was terrified. And not only that, but she told me that I was bleeding internally, that the tumor had grown so big it had grown up into my diaphragm and it was crushing my organs, and that I needed to get it diagnosed. Is it benign or malignant? She said, but it's not going to matter. You need to get this out today, And so I sat with her in their offices for another 45 minutes, and I asked, well, let's say through one of the complementary medicine techniques, I can get the bleeding to stop. How much time can you give me? And she finally, after a 45-minute discussion, she agreed to give me exactly a month's time to give it my best shot. And if in a month's time I weren't significantly healed, then I would come back and let her do what she knew how to do, which was to surgically remove it. And I remember so clearly when I left her offices. I'm a New Yorker. You may not know that about me, but I'd moved to Malibu, California, and so her offices were in downtown LA. And I stepped out into that California sunshine, and in front of her offices was this mimosa tree. And I looked at this tree, and I don't know if you've ever had a moment like this, Energy, where it's almost like time stops. And there was this timeless moment where I looked at this tree, and I saw the golden blossoms on it that I hadn't even noticed going in, and I hadn't even noticed the tree when I was going into the offices, and I smelled a fragrance that I hadn't smelled going in. And my racing thinking mind, it started to just finally wind itself down. And as I looked at this tree, and time stood still, out of nowhere, waves of gratitude came flooding. And I had this gut knowing arise that somehow I would be guided to heal. And even though I was doing everything I believed in, I knew that somehow this healing journey was going to guide me in a way to get access to something that is called cell memories. And what we all know about cell memories, and what I knew at that time, is there had been a lot of medical research done. As a matter of fact, the Center for Disease Control in America, that's in Atlanta, has estimated that 85% of all illness is emotionally based. I just read this online 3 months ago. And there, at that time, in 1992, there was a lot of research going on about cellular healing. And what they had discovered is that, and what science still knows and has verified, and they can watch this in a lab, is that when you feel a strong emotion and you repress it, what it does is it releases a chemical into our bodies, into our bloodstream, which will go to certain cell receptors and block them, rendering those cells incapable of communicating with the rest of the cells in the body. And if over time illness is going to happen, it's going to happen where the cells are blocked. And conversely, what science has also found, medical science, is that when we feel our emotions openly and freely, quite naturally like a child, well, then our cell receptors remain open. And so I knew at that time, Energy, that part of my healing journey would lay in going on a journey inside myself to uncover what was stored in those blocked cells that were inside the tumor, to uncover the consciousness, the cell memories that were stored there, and to go through my own process of release and healing. And I didn't have a clue how I would do such a thing, and yet I was still so grateful at that time for all the medical research going on, and specifically for the research of Dr. Deepak Chopra. And at that time, he was a medical doctor, and he was chief surgeon general for Boston Medical Hospital. He wasn't the guru then that he's become today. And at that time, he had done a career study of people who had healed from serious illness without drugs or surgery. And after amassing thousands of case studies, he could only find two qualities that successful survivors have in common. And one was that through some act of grace or spontaneous event, they got access to this that he called the cell memories. And the second thing that they had in common is was through some act of grace or spontaneous event, they actually got access to the what he called the infinite intelligence of the body, the part of you that makes your heart beat and your eyes shine and your hair grow. And the people who spontaneously did this somehow opened into that healing potential and actually went on some sort of journey inside themselves and uncovered the exact cell memories that were stored inside those blocked cells, and then went through a process somehow of spontaneously releasing what was stored there. When the new cells were born, they were born devoid of that old consciousness. And so I knew all this. I'd read it. I'd seen the research on it. I'd, of course, being in the field, was, learning all about that. And now I'd even studied with Dr. Deepak Chopra. But, the truth is you can know all the science on the planet. You can know all the statistics. You can understand how the healing happens. But unless you have a method, it's no more than a bunch of beautiful, inspiring vision of possibility, really. And that's where I stood. And so I actually didn't know what to do at that time. I didn't have a clue. I just knew that it was possible. I'd seen case studies. I'd seen the reports. I'd read the research. I knew it was possible, and I somehow just knew when I was looking at that mimosa tree that part of my healing journey would lay in uncovering a way to get access to those cell memories. And so really the whole journey was born from the whole journey I underwent over the next 6.5 weeks.
And can you summarize for us, Brandon, how you do get in touch with those cells and the memories?
Well, it was interesting, energy. For me, what happened was I didn't have a method yet. And so I did everything I did know how. I went on to 100% fresh and raw fruits and vegetables, fresh squeezed juices, and we now know, science knows this, that cancer can't survive in an alkaline environment. And so I was at that time eating a fully fresh and raw vegetable diet so that I could alkalinize my body and blood. And I went on to a cleanse where I took herbs to cleanse, and I did emotional release work, I did breath work, I had massages, I had colonics. And I was 3.5 weeks into this big cleansing program. And even though I was looking radiant from all the wonderful, life-giving things I was doing for my body, my stomach was still as hard as a rock and stretched taut like a drum, and I was beginning to panic. Because I was aware in a 1.5 time I was going to have to go back to that surgeon, and I was going to have to let her do something that didn't feel right for me. And so an oncologist friend of mine had recommended, why don't you go up to Berkeley, and there's this great massage therapist up there who's sometimes good at helping you release emotional things, and since you're wanting to get to the emotional root cause of this, why don't you go visit with her? And the truth of what happened for me, energy, was I was lying on that massage table, and it's like my whole world, it just came crashing in on me. And I thought, you know what, Brandon, you've tried everything. You've done everything that you know how to do in this medical complementary medicine field. You've done everything with all your backgrounds, all your degrees in this area. And you failed. And it was like my whole world just came tumbling around me, and I just fell into a deep, dark despair. Now I'm getting a massage, and the massage therapist is not aware of this going on. But I just fell into feeling a total out-and-out failure. And something happened where I stopped fighting. I stopped trying to figure it out. I stopped trying to analyze what was going on to me. I stopped looking for answers. I stopped striving. I stopped fighting, trying to fix it. And I just plain gave up. And I opened into that feeling of being a failure, and I fell into a deep, black, dark despair. And I didn't even fight that. And I just let go, and I surrendered. And I opened into a presence of nothingness, of almost like I didn't exist. And when I let go in that, I just surrendered into a place of deep peace inside myself. And it felt like the room was filled with this peace, like I was being bathed in this peace, and it was omnipresent. It was an embrace holding me in itself. And I was just lying there. I'm getting a massage, lying in this bath of peace. And out of nowhere, a prayer arose. And it was a simple prayer that anybody might pray. It was just, please, somehow, let me be guided to go inside this tumor and find out what it has to teach me, and to release what's there and let go whatever's there, so that when the new cells are born, they're born devoid, free from that old consciousness. And that prayer was released. And I can tell you, Energy, I actually didn't expect an answer. And at the most unexpected moment, I was guided, and I went straight into that tumor. And when I uncovered the cell memory there, immediately my therapist, know-it-all, arrogant, thinking mind checked in. And it said, this can't be the cell memory. You already know all about the cell memory. I mean, it's a memory of childhood abuse, and God knows, as a therapist in life, I've been through years of clearing all my old childhood issues, and of course will have faced and cleared the issue of abuse. And it was almost like my mind was saying, Brandon, you have got that issue so handled. This is not the right cell memory. And my mind was saying that, and my body was saying, you have got nothing to lose by attempting to face this again and clear it. And so I went through a process of clearing that was not dissimilar to other times. And at the end of that process, I arrived at the same place of acceptance that I had been at for years. And I asked the peace that was so pervasive in the room, am I complete with this issue? And the simple word, no, arose. And again, I am hearing that arise in my own consciousness. I was plunged into despair, and I thought, you know what? I don't even believe this is the right issue. I don't believe it's the right cell memory. And even if it isn't, I don't have a clue how to heal, how to complete with it. And so I just, once again, I just gave up. I just let go. And again, I ended up falling back into this peace that was so omnipresent in the room. And it was some later time in the massage, another prayer arose. And it was, again, a simple prayer. It just, please, how to complete. And again, the prayer was released, and I didn't expect an answer. And then the most unexpected moment, an answer came. And the word was forgiveness. And I thought, oh, come on. This cannot be, some big mystery, some big solution. I already knew about the issue, and I've come to accept it. What kind of difference could forgiveness make? But again, I thought, I have nothing to lose by attempting to forgive. And so I opened my heart, and I began to try to forgive, and it hurt. Because, you see, I didn't realize I'd done this, but as a therapist, what I'd done is I'd created this whole noble image of myself being this all-understanding, compassionate therapist who'd come to understand my violent past. And I had to face down 30 years of pride and blame in order to open my heart, actually, and to forgive wholeheartedly. And it hurt to face down that much pride and that much ego. But at some point I did open my heart. And it was while I was forgiving that I realized, you know what? This tumor's never been clinging to me. I've been clinging to it. And I realized that 30 years of blame was finally over. Now, I know most of the listeners have probably already know this. It wasn't a week and a half later, but it was 3.5 weeks later, which is how much time it takes for the uterine cells to replicate. We all know what happens once a month. And in that 3.5 weeks' time, my belly got flatter and flatter and flatter, and I went to Cedars-Sinai Hospital at the end of that time, and I was diagnosed to be textbook perfect clean, completely tumor-free. And so the journey, that I underwent in very, very, very much more detail is what's detailed in the book called The Journey. And also the method is in there that gives everybody a method of how to go on your own journey, how to go inside yourself and uncover what's actually stored in a very step-by-step, practical, nitty-gritty, down-to-earth way, what's stored inside your cells, and to go through a process of not only uncovering what's stored inside you, but to go through a process of release and letting go and healing so the body and the being can heal. And so that when new cells are born, they're born devoid of that old consciousness, those old cell memories. So the journey is known these days for work that is both radically, cellularly healing, and it's also work that's about waking up to who you really are, to coming home, to the peace inside you, to the love that is your own essence.
And is it often about forgiveness when people have these kind of medical conditions or, cancer or tumors? Is it regularly down to that kind of thing?
I never know what the cell memory is, truthfully. And with every human being, there's different cell memories, But no matter what memory you uncover, in the journey process, there's always an opportunity at the end of the time when you finally release the rage and the hurt and the blame and the anger and all of that. When you've let that go, then there is that moment where you're offered an opportunity to forgive. And I do feel that there is some sort of magic that happens when you forgive, because that's when you let go of the story. I know with my own story of abuse, obviously having been a therapist in life and having done years and years of therapy on myself, and to this day I'm still a student of life. I get a journey process once a week when I'm on tour, because I sure as heck am sure there's more than one cell memory stored inside. And I feel it's a privilege to continue to clear whatever's here. But in any case, all healing begins with you undergoing your own journey and finding out what your own truth is, and releasing whatever you're here to release, and to going through your own process of forgiveness. And with me, with the abuse story, okay, I'd already faced that. I knew about it. I'd come to a place of acceptance with it, but I realized there's a quantum leap between accepting what's happened to you in your life and forgiving. Because if you just accept it, what happens is it's like a bunch of baggage that you get to carry with you. Oh, I've accepted my horrible past, And it's like this big, huge burden you're carrying with you, dragging with you into the rest of your life. But when you forgive, that's where, on an unconditional level, some part of your being, your essence, your heart, your soul, whatever you want to call that, says, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm really letting this one go. And for me, I realized that 30 years of my blame game was over when I forgave. And subsequently to doing that process, by the way, I read in an Enlightened Master's book that he felt that the root cause of all illness was lack of forgiveness. And I would say, conversely, also, that the beginning of all true healing begins with forgiveness. And so, yes, forgiveness does play a big part in journey work. It's not the only key. It's not like you can just say, I forgive you. You have to, first of all, really release the pain that kept you from forgiving. You have to let go the words, the consciousness that you've been holding on to. Because only then can forgiveness be real. Otherwise, it's just lip service. It's just words you're saying. And so it is a comprehensive process that I've put into the back of the book so that everybody can undergo their own journey, or if they're feeling strong to really undergo the latest, newest, up-to-the-minute work, then to get the support of trainers. And, of course, we have seminars going on in 38 countries around the world, and the work's been translated into 22 languages, and so we work in a lot of countries with this radically healing work. And here in Britain, it's interesting. One of the first talks I gave was at the Chester Cancer Clinic, and so many people thousands and thousands have healed here in Britain using the journey work. But it's not just become known for healing with disease and illness. It's about really coming to a wholeness in all levels of your life, coming to a place of healing with your family and with your spiritual life and with your work, so that you can live from your own divine potential, from the truth of who you are.
And do you believe that all illness is ultimately there to teach us something?
I do believe that. I believe that all illness is an invitation for you to learn something through it. And that, again, I don't feel anybody can tell you what your healing journey is. That part of your healing journey is you undergo your own work. You uncover what that tumor has to teach you. I mean, I have to tell you, I had a lot of support around me, energy, and the truth was I felt very alone. Very alone. Because when you get a diagnosis like that, and your life is on the line, and you realize there's nothing anybody else can do for you, that this is something you're going to have to face. And it's a lonely journey. And why I love it that the journey is used all over the world by medical doctors, by cancer hospitals, by alternative healing centers, and mainly by people from all walks of life. And what I love is it doesn't say it's the way to heal. What it says, this is a way to participate in your own healing journey alongside whatever else you're doing to heal. And so sometimes people can be undergoing chemotherapy and be getting a physical journey while they're undergoing that. And so I do feel that there is a gift for all of us to learn what it is that our soul has to learn through any kind of trauma that life gives us. And, it's so interesting. I love it. I'm usually not telling my own story these days, The truth of the matter is, because it's been I'm 58 years old now, and I was 39, so, a long time ago that story happened for me in healing. And what really moves me more is hearing everybody else's healing stories. And a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from the granddaughter of Donald Upton, who is a man who's practiced complementary medicine here in Britain for many, many years, and he's 82 years old. And you know that 3 months ago or 4 months ago, he was diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer with a very, very dire prognosis, was told to go on chemotherapy, told to go on radiation, and get the whole operation, everything that needed to happen. And he said, no, it's time now. I put my own beliefs to work. And his daughter was a journey practitioner, and she gave him the journey book, and he read it. And interestingly, he decided to do everything that I did. So he went on to 100% fresh and raw fruits and vegetables and got on a herbal cleanse and investigated what would be good for prostate cancer. And then his daughter took him through the journey process several times. And 2 months later, he was pronounced medically cured. And just last week, he was invited to speak at a wellness conference, and there was a big tribute that was given to him. Because here, we think we're too old to heal, and I'd rather tell his story. I'd rather hear about how it is at 82. You have so much trust in the body's innate healing potential, and the journey helps you get access to that in a very down-to-earth way. And to access that healing potential and to uncover the cell memories and clear what's there, and to, his diagnosis after 2 months was he was down to 13%, which is in medical terms medically cured. And I find everyone else's stories so inspiring. I know you know someone who also who did the book and did the work and healed.
That's right, yeah. Okay, you're listening to Spiritual Matters with Energy. We're in conversation with Brandon Bays, talking about her journey of self-healing. A couple more questions for you, Brandon.
Sure.
What do you imagine you'd be doing today if it hadn't been for your illness and writing the book?
I have no clue. I have no clue. At the time that happened, I was a therapist in the complementary field, and I was also giving seminars in living healthfully. And I would imagine I would still be doing that. And I feel like with the journey, with my own journey, afterwards, I thought, I'm just another statistic, just like everybody else. And then I thought, maybe this happened to me because we're at a time in history where humanity is ready to participate in their own healing journey and to wake up to the truth of who we all are, to come home to the wholeness, to the peace inside, and that maybe this isn't something that was just meant for me. Maybe it's something that everyone should have access to the tools. And so, now not only have 4 books already been written, and my 5th will be coming out in next spring. It's called Living the Journey. But I'm working right now with medical, with governments using this work. For instance, in the Dutch government, all the ministries, if you have work-related stress, the government will only pay for you to go to one clinic, which is a journey-based clinic, to help really get to the root cause of this. Now, my husband, he's Kevin Billett, he's just gotten on a plane today. He left Heathrow Airport and has flown to Canada because he's working with the Canadian Justice Department. And those are lawyers and judges who are undergoing this work to liberate their leadership potential. We're also working with the Justice Department in Australia. I'm working with the Education Department in and have met with all the ministers of education in Israel, with the not only the head of pedagogy and psychology and head of guidance counselors, those high schools and head of grade schools, etc. But all the ministers in the Ministry for Education have undergone the work, and they said, well, we're not really willing for our teachers to give this to our children until we ourselves have experienced it. And so they've experienced it, and now the teachers are getting the work so that the children can get it. And there are thousands of schools in South Africa that are right now already using this, tens of thousands of children using it. And they found that with children who get regular journey work, that their test scores, their pass rate on tests, are in 91 to 93% pass rate, whereas when they didn't get journey work, they were averaging 67% pass rate. And it's not because we were teaching them any different ABCs. What happens is when someone has a shutdown or an emotional block, they're not able to get access to their own innate intelligence, their own creativity, to their own natural talent. But when you clear their emotional blocks and all their shutdowns and what's holding them back in life, then their own natural potential can shine. And so this is what I meant by really the journey work is not just about cellular healing anymore, which is why I was, in a way, sorry to have to just tell my story, that it's really about liberating your life and coming to your own full potential, your own divine potential, so that you can live fully expressed as yourself. And so it's work that's being used by medical doctors and by I'm going the week after next. I'll be speaking in a Catholic church in Holland, and what I love about it, energy, is that the work is being used not only by governments, ministries of countries, but in all different fields, and also in all different religions, are using this work to get to the root cause of whatever's keeping someone shut down and to clear that. And the truth is, my prayer would be for people to give themselves their wake-up call now, so they don't have to go through what I went through, which is to get a wake-up call and really be on death's doorstep, to finally decide to really undergo your own healing journey. And so it really is an invitation to everyone listening that what I pray is that you'll use this talk today as an invitation for you to undergo your own healing journey. And get on the website, www.thejourney.com, and there's so many free downloads you can get off that. It's an invitation really to all of us to clear whatever's obscuring us so we can open into our deepest potential, to the truth of who we are, to start living life fully on all levels, not just physically, but in your career and in your marriages and in your home life. So it really is, it's not my prayer that people are just inspired, oh my God, that weird person who healed herself. That's not why I wrote these books. It's not why I live 44 weeks on the road. The reason I live, the reason I exist, is because my prayer is that every human being gets access to these divinely inspired tools, so we can all awaken to the magnificence of who we are and come home to the peace inside ourselves, and can clear whatever blocks, whatever shutdowns, whatever cell memories are there, so that more of who we really are can be available to life.
Well, it's amazing work you're doing, Brad, and that's for sure. Final question for you. The journey is endorsed by many highly regarded people like Deepak Chopra, you mentioned earlier, and Anthony Robbins. In fact, Deepak says Brandon takes her reader on a journey of astounding inspiration. Which people have you been most inspired by?
On a medical level, on a research level, Dr. Candace Pert, she wrote Molecules of Emotions. Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, these are all people who are right now working they're all doctors, working in the field of cellular healing, and all of their research basically demonstrates that emotions are part of every illness, and part of your healing journey will lay in getting access to these stored emotions and clearing them. I mean, even if the Center for Disease Control in America, highly respected, huge organization in America, believes that 85% of all illness is based in emotions, well, that should give people some idea that we need tools right now. And so I love the research going on by those particular authors. And then personally, on a spiritual level, I'm inspired by Punjaji, known as Papaji, and Ramana Maharishi. They're both no longer in physical form, but they're very pristine, non-dual teaching of who we really are, of what our own infinite nature is. And it was Papaji who gave a great many blessings for this work, and also some teachings to me to be able to incorporate that in the journey work. And what I love about the journey work is it's not born from someone else's theory. It's all of the work, and it's developed hugely since I first wrote The Journey, because I've worked with hundreds of thousands of people in the last 17, 18 years. And I've seen what works, and I've also seen what doesn't work. And so the work is born from very practical, grounded basis of what works and doesn't work, and the work itself has expanded. And so there's many different processes and methods, and that's why I give seminars all over the world, so that you can undergo the latest, newest work in a very real, down-to-earth way.
Okay, you mentioned your website, which is thejourney.com, and I'm guessing there's all the information there about what you're doing, your events and so on. Brandon, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been so wonderful to have you join us. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask one more thing? Can I give you the phone number if they want to call? We have offices here in Britain. If people want to know more,
yeah,
is that
of course.
Okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's 01656 890 400.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to an interview from spiritualmatters.org.